Hey everyone, welcome back to the Immergence Show, where we explore the intersection of emerging tech, immersive experiences, and creative innovation. Today's episode is going to hit differently because we're not just talking about what tech can do, we're talking about how it feels. We have all seen AR filters, flashy AI demos, spatial activations, but how many of them actually move you? How many are designed to connect, to heal, or to mean something? Our guest today is someone who's been building tech with that emotional layer long before it was trendy. He started as a poet, then moved into creative direction at Leo Burnett and PwC. Now, as Chief Creative Officer at one of the most quietly powerful innovation studios in this space, he's led projects with Meta, Snap, Microsoft, and others, turning bleeding edge tools into deeply human experiences. From augmented reality that helps kids recover after surgery to geospatial gifts that reconnect families across continents to bold new framework for how agentic AI will change brand survival. This is going to be an eye-opening conversation for anyone building in AI, AR, and XR. And as always, we want you in the conversation. So drop your questions in the chat. We will be pulling in an audience Q&A throughout. Also, make sure you tag your friends to join us live. All right, let's dive in. Danny, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Amazing. Excited to have you. I want you to tell us a little bit about your background. I kind of touched on it, but I want to hear your story, your version of the story, and your unconventional but really powerful, inspiring path.
Yeah, the rumors are true. I actually did used to be a poet. I used to write and teach poetry. I was kind of a Luddite with a flip phone for a long time. But then I moved to Chicago and quickly discovered that people weren't looking for a poet. Surprise. So at that time, basically, I was friends with a lot of designers, and they gave me pirated copies of like the Adobe Suite and Macromedia, and I taught myself how to use all of these tools, and I just found it very fascinating. So that's kind of how I got into like the digital space. Is basically I wanted to learn how to create things and to make things. So I worked for a textbook company for a while, kind of made sense for me as an educator. And I used to come up with these crazy ideas and pitch these crazy projects. And they told me one day, they said, Danny, we really like your ideas. We think they're really cool, but they're really expensive. Have you ever considered advertising? And I was like, no, because I hadn't at the time. But basically, they introduced me to Leo Burnett, not the person, the agency, back when it had that name before it got turned into Leo. But yeah, I went into advertising with that, and the next thing you know, I was doing all of the projects for Kellogg's and Allstate and all kinds of craziness. So not exactly what you would call a traditional path by any means. I basically worked reverse from no technology to immense technology, and then all the way into like making television commercials and 360 campaigns and stuff like that.
Well, you're a creative person, so your path should have been creative too. So awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Looking back, what threads from your early creative work still influences how you lead today?
So, I mean, obviously with poetry, there's an immense amount of craft and attention to detail, which is very relevant to any kind of creative work. Also, understanding how to invoke emotion through like a shared but constantly shifting language. I mean, language isn't static. It's not like words mean the same thing over time. It's something that we have a shared meaning with. So poetry, digital, experiential, even like agents and AI and stuff, it's really built on this foundation of a shared language. Also, I remember in the early days of digital, like anything was possible. I mean, we used to build stuff and it was the first of its kind every time. But also, we realized really quickly the difference between what's possible and maybe wins you a vanity award versus what's actually impactful. And that's something that's some really like basic to creativity and to creating important and impactful experiences.
Love it. And when did you kind of shift from storytelling into product and brand innovation? Like, what was that like? What, did you have an aha moment that you kind of decided, I mean, you mentioned you went to advertising, but like actually doing the product innovation side and building stuff?
So, I mean, I started making my own products in the midst of all this as well. I didn't want to just be creating for brands and for particular advertising channels. I wanted
Yeah.
to be doing something more expansive. But, I don't think I ever really shifted away from storytelling into product and brand exactly. I think it's just a different story, right? Like it's a different language, a different set of signs and signifiers and signified. But I will say that as a writer, when I was a very young writer, I felt like I was communicating to a very small group of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it was a very niche crowd, and I wanted to communicate on a broader spectrum. And then in advertising, I felt kind of a disconnect between the storytelling and the product. It was like very cool and flashy and funny and clever, but then the actual artistry and the impact was kind of lost. And that's really when I started creating my own products and brands and experimented with how I see the world itself.
Amazing. And yes, you have been an entrepreneur. If you can share anything about that, I would love to hear more.
Sure. So I created a couple companies. I created one that created it was actually a physical product. One of the things about working with digital all the time, sometimes it's very nice to actually do something tangible.
Right.
So I created like an earbud holder for this company I invented called Stata. There was also like a phone stand. But at the same time, I was creating something called Bandwidth, which was it was basically a music startup. And it was before Silicon Valley and before it kind of became a little bit of a, I can't believe you did that. But yeah, I got to meet Billy Corgan, got to have some serious conversations with the record labels. But what it did was it actually separated the stems of different music tracks, and then you could make your own mashup and mix live with audio and visual and correct it for internet latency, like way, way ahead of its time. We're talking like, 15 years ago. But the music industry was not ready 15 years ago for that. But it was some pretty cool stuff. So I really liked being able to do both at the same time and bridge the gap between them.
Amazing. Wow, that's really powerful. And you have worked in the spatial design work, emerging tech, immersive experiences, and you have said that a lot of tech feels impressive but emotionally hollow. What do you think is like root cause of this? Why is this happening?
Well, I think that in moments of like really intense technological advancement, like we're in now, or the Industrial Revolution, or the early internet, or for people like video games like me, when graphics get really good, then the stories start to suffer. In those moments, I think we get lost in the technology for technology's sake. Like we do it because we can, not necessarily because it's meaningful or impactful or does something that we actually care about as humans. It's exciting and it's new and look, I love it. But at the same time, the pure art of creation, like when the adrenaline starts to kind of quell a little bit, like we realize that it's disconnected. It's lacking in that substantive core, which seeks to elevate our existence rather than to just assert its own existence as a technology. It's missing the intimacy of human emotion. And that's I think a natural thing that happens in these early moments. Like it gets overblown. You're like, it can do everything. You're like, yeah, it can, but why?
Yes, such a good point. And I want to take a moment and say hi to our amazing audience. Thank you for joining us. Please comment so we know you're here, and your ideas and comments are really valuable. Jean, Matt, we're so grateful for you. We actually had Matt on the show the other day, and he talked about how, like there's no way we can go around, making things emotional. Like this is such a big part of building experiences to make it memorable. So I hope Matt and others are enjoying this conversation. All right. So maybe you can tell us, Danny, about a time when you realized the project was missing the emotional core, and then you kind of turned it around, with your creative direction.
Sure. Well, there was a project that we did called An Impossible Guest. And the idea around this project was, the question, if you could have dinner with anyone living or dead, who would it be? So we used technology to actually do that. We used it to, sorry, hold on a second. Somebody apparently just started cleaning my window behind me, and I did not invite them. But anyway,
No worries. We
we
don't see
actually,
them.
yeah, this is live. So anyway, we actually used the technology to bring this to life, to answer that question: if you could have dinner with anyone living or dead, who would it be?
Yeah.
And we brought Leonardo da Vinci to life using artificial intelligence and a lot of historical data, data controls, and spatial design. And it was quite challenging. It was ahead of its time. But what I realized in that project is that it was more like a living textbook, right?
Mhm.
It was like almost like you put all of the knowledge of Leonardo da Vinci and then gave it a voice. But that doesn't actually bring Leonardo da Vinci to life.
Right.
It takes more than that. And one of the things that was missing was a two-way conversation, the ability to actually like think about what would Leonardo be curious about? What would he want to ask you about? Not what do I want to ask him? I can read that. But how would Leonardo actually like talk to me? What are the types of questions and follow-ups and little bits of fascination to bring to life? And of course, his love of science and art and his flamboyance, which he's very well known for, like that was what was missing. And we really needed to capture his emotion and his personality, not through facts and not through a whole lot of research, which we did, but actually through the human aspect of it.
Love it. And what was the outcome of that? How did the project was received?
It's super cool. I mean, it's still something that you can experience in MetaQuest, and you can have these conversations. We'd like to bring some other impossible guests to life, and I'm happy to take votes and see who what people would like to see next. I for some reason, a lot of people really want Genghis Khan to come back to life. I really don't know why, but that one seems to come up a lot. I might pick somebody else like Edison but yeah, no, the project was very successful, and it was truly something unique to be able to have that kind of a conversation and connect two different times, two different people, two different spaces.
So I think the takeaway for me is kind of go beyond the obvious. Like don't just like go with the surface level action that you can do, and kind of figure out what does it look like when we are dealing with a human. So let's replicate that, right?
Yeah, and it takes more thought than you would think, because I mean, right now the way AI models work, you could say that that they have a lot of personality, but the personality is not really particularly realistic, I would say. So one way of putting that is, I don't know if you've noticed that AI chatbots, AI in general, is really way too polite and way too nice.
Oh
Like
yeah.
try and ask it to disagree with you. It's very, very hard. And that's just not human. That's not how we are. We're going to disagree. And also, it's really lame to say, hey, can you tell me about this thing? And then they tell you about it. And then you say, yeah, I don't agree with that. And they say, I'm so sorry. You're right. I'm wrong. And it's like, no, like that's not helpful. That's not engaging me as a human being. That's just telling me what I want to hear.
And yeah, that there's a lot of discussion about this on X, and they say it's just the way they designed it to sell us more. But it's like, yeah, it's not real personality like a real human. So there's a lot for them to work on. Awesome. And we have a comment from Debbie. Says the part that Danny raised about building something substantive speaks to me. Well, glad that it's resonating with you. Awesome. And I'm wondering, what is the danger in chasing innovation for the innovation's sake? Maybe you can give us an example, or maybe not mentioning a company.
I won't mention any names, but okay. Not to bring up the M word, but bear with me. Back in the throes of the metaverse madness that we all went through, which wasn't that long ago. It feels like a long time ago, but it really wasn't. We got a lot of requests for the creation of virtual worlds. And I would always start in speaking to our clients or potential clients by saying, why do you want to be in the metaverse? Like, what do you want your brand's presence in this space to mean? And if we didn't have a good answer, we wouldn't do the project. I mean, again, not naming any names, but some of those projects that we didn't do, one in particular, which involved eating in the metaverse, it was immortalized on one of those lists of worst virtual experiences ever. So it's important to really think about Like, why do you want to do this? Like, what is the purpose? And if you don't, the danger is not just alienating people, but atrophying your brand in general, and not like being disingenuous to the platform and to the community within it. And I mean, look, we saw this with Gen AI too. Not with AI as it is now, but when Gen AI first came out, everybody was like, put AI in it. And they're like, okay, but why? They'd say, because it's AI and we can PR the shit out of that and it'll be amazing. And you're like, okay, sure, true for a little bit, but then it becomes ubiquitous, gimmicky, and kind of desperate. So, it's important. Like, and by the end, of course, AI has moved well past that early immature moment, but yeah, it's something to be very cautious of.
Very good point. And we have a comment from Fatima. Maybe that agreeable disposition is why people like chatbots as replacement for real life companions. I actually noticed that in one of my friends that just relying on what these LLMs are telling him, he's kind of making big life decisions rather than trusting someone who actually knows you and cares about you, or a therapist or someone. But yeah, that could be a little bit dangerous.
Sometimes you need to hear something you don't want to hear. And it's important when you have a good friend that they can tell you that. And Gen AI isn't going to tell you that. They'll get sued.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, any friendship is about also being kind of like a mirror and reflecting on what's really happening, not just what we want to hear. So. Cool. So let's talk about Electric Factory a little bit. Maybe you can tell our audience who may not be familiar, what is Electric Factory's unique, offering, and the hybrid approach that you guys have with creative strategy, hands-on R&D, and storytelling. Just give us an overview.
Sure. So we're a creative technology partner. In the simplest sense, that means we don't separate creative from technology. Our strategy and concepting is very, very deeply informed, not only by the knowledge of the tech of today and tomorrow, but also by accountability. We build it. We don't just think it. We make it real, from ideation all the way through execution. When I say accountable, that means that we better have a good reason to make it real and be able to stand behind it and support our creations.
Love it. And what would you say about like your team structure, or how you guys are doing things internally on a high level you can share, different from other agencies?
So, I mean, coming from traditional advertising, for example, and traditional agencies, where a lot of times there was this idea that the idea comes first, like the creative comes first. It's not that I don't think the creative isn't and the storytelling isn't the most important thing, but it doesn't necessarily come first. These things have to coexist. So when we work on things, we have creative leads and tech leads that are very, very intertwined in trying to figure out what is the impactful solution that we're trying to create. It's not that old school mentality of saying, I have this cool idea, now I just got to find somebody to build it for me. That somebody to build it for me might have insights that I don't have. They might actually understand things differently, or be able to ride this wave of ever-changing technology in different ways. That also means that we remain very open to different tech and to using tech in ways that may be unexpected. Like, they tell you you can use it in this manner, but when you really get under the hood and start experimenting, sometimes there's new ways and new surprising things that you can do. So I think of everybody on my team as being creative technologists as much as just creatives.
Yes, and we had Bob on the show. He's wonderful, like yourself. And yeah, I've already had interaction with Ryan, and I can say this is a great company with great, amazing people. Awesome. So what type of collaborators do you guys have? Do you do everything in-house, or do you collaborate with others? And kind of like, how do you go about finding those collaborations?
Sure. I mean, we do a lot in-house, but we don't do everything in-house. Obviously, there are special niche subject matter experts that we really rely on. I mean, with the pace of technological change, I always joke that, kind of like restaurants in New York, if you tried a different AI tool out every single day, you would never catch up. So yes, we have an understanding of all of these technologies of AR, AI, and all the other acronyms, but we do partner with different groups when it comes to bringing certain special creations to life. Like, for example, somebody who knows particularly how to use AI in sound and composition might be a little bit different and a little bit specific. So yeah, we do a lot in house. We certainly do the overall direction, but we collaborate very successfully with a bunch of different partners. So we look for partners that can see kind of beyond the cool and see the potential impact, right? Like, I mean, cool is part of impact. It is, but it's a smaller one. It's like you have to understand, like, what are we trying to do here? Like, whether it's like a hardcore strategist, creative, or one of these technology specialists, these are areas of focus that really, like, take what I was talking about with language earlier. It's understanding language in a slightly different perspective, in a slightly different way, and being able to elaborate and elucidate upon it in ways that I like to think that all three of them weave together to create something very impactful and very emotionally driven and human.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. Before we move on to some case studies, I want to ask our audience, if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. We'll get to your questions as well, or comments. They're all welcome. So let's get into a case study, and maybe the paper world, you can show us kind of,
Sure.
getting into how things look like that you're
Yeah,
building.
I'll show just a real quick thing here. Give me 1 second. Make sure that tech works in my favor today.
Yes. Live, we are always risking a little bit.
All right, can you see my screen?
Yes, I'm bringing it up.
Okay.
Go ahead. So maybe tell us what's happening here.
Sure. So this is actually an AR adventure that gets children post-op to explore their surroundings and increases movement over time, which can increase mobility and gamification. So I know that I'll play it one more time because it was kind of fast. But basically, the idea is you reduce complications after surgery by increasing their ambulatory rate. So paper world is a world where you go and you follow this butterfly into these intentionally paper-driven shapes, but for a particular purpose, really to accelerate recovery and to go through these different levels. And we did this in partnership with Children's Hospital of LA and also with Snap, because we have beta partnership with Snap, which means, of course, like, we kind of get to work on the actual tech underneath it. We create showcase apps and work with their SDKs. So they brought us in as experts to work with them in Children's Hospital of LA to test this hypothesis. The idea was, like, after a child goes through surgery, increasing mobility would also increase their recovery speed. So to test that, we actually built this application, working with Children's Hospital of LA and Dr. Gould, who is awesome. If any of you have a chance to work with him, he's phenomenal. Super fascinating guy, very into tech, but responsible tech. So yeah, we basically designed this to be approachable for varied demographics and age ranges, but still provide an avenue for positive exploration and motivation during a very difficult time. Obviously, post-op is a very sensitive moment in time, and you have to be able to create an experience that can promote healing, but also really be respectful of the audience itself, of, in this case, children.
Totally. And was there any unexpected challenge in designing something that is playful and medically useful like this?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, LiDAR wasn't totally ubiquitous at the time, which we were using. So we had to create a specific mesh that we would use to work around it. Not to get too much into the tech, but like, we basically had to figure out how to optimize it for multiple different tiers of experience. Because not everybody, especially at this hospital, has an iPhone 16 or an iPhone 19 or, the latest version of everything that can run off of all the different technologies. Also, this is a multilingual community, so language was something that we couldn't take for granted. So the whole experience really was solved with design. We used visual cues and visual aids rather than relying upon text to be able to create this experience. So yeah, there were a lot of those challenges that we had to overcome to get through it, for sure.
Awesome. Lots of learnings. And for it's just a common question when we talk about this kind of creative projects about defining success. How did you define success for a project that is kind of going beyond the typical metrics like this?
Sure. Well, I mean, this project itself, I think, was ahead of its time, and in some ways, it still is, right? I mean, we're still trying to figure out how to do these things. So the way I look at it is, it's helping to set the stage and starting to normalize the use of augmented reality in more practical and meaningful ways
Mm-hmm.
that are still emerging. Like, I mean, you would think the amount of time that AR has been around, that we would have more of these applications that actually seek to do meaningful things and to create positive impact, helping people heal, creating experiences that are about augmenting the world in meaningful ways. But really, most of it's entertainment. Most of it tends to be very entertainment or social focused, a little bit myopic and focused on me and augmenting me as opposed to augmenting the world.
Yeah.
Um, so, and this is also something that I don't think the tech was necessarily ever intended to do. I was talking about that earlier. Like, I remember in mid 2000s, which will date me, but I was using AR to make little monsters dance on top of a little QR code, right? That
Okay.
is very early. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. It's so cool. I can tell you that I had no idea at that time that this could potentially be used to help children recover from surgery. Like, I mean, you can't get any farther from that. But still, most of the time, QR is closer to the little monster than it is to actually this paper world, where you actually look to increase health.
Um,
So here we are trying to understand tech that can do a whole lot more if we just had a little bit broader perspective.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Such a good point. And such a great, powerful example. And we have great audience that work also in the AR and immersive experiences. Hi, Ian. Thank you for joining us. Ian is also building AR experiences. Casey is in the immersive experience. So we're so grateful you all are here. Feel free to ask your question. We do have a question from Casey. He's interested in how you test or validate where an experience is emotionally resonant. Is it instinct, data, or a mix of both?
It tends to be a mix of both when possible. I mean, obviously, a lot of it is instinctual. We try to use data whenever possible, but it's not necessarily easy to measure emotion in data. I mean, yes, we can measure like eye dilation and things like that, but I don't know that that necessarily really captures the spirit of it. So I think that a lot of it really comes down to how people react, and a lot of these things have to do with communities on different platforms, right? And honestly, just I hate to say something so low tech, but the comments that you get on the experiences that you create really say a lot. Because if somebody says 5 stars, this is cool, then okay, it was cool.
Yeah.
Generally, if you create something that's more emotionally resonant, people feel the need to actually elaborate on that a little bit more and to write something a little bit more meaningful, because it's still a surprise for most people. They're not expecting to have an emotionally resonant experience within a particular platform. So you get these kind of comments like, I never thought that anything like this could be possible. Like, this is so cool. I had no idea. Those aha moments that you get from people, I know it's not necessarily like, it's qualitative more than quantitative, but I think that's when you know you're really on the right track.
Such a good point. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, that's a really good comments about the reviews. In all these emotional experiences, we want to evoke emotions. But if people are not, loving it or hating it, they're not going to write anything. So just reading the reviews is a really good feedback. So thank you for that. That was really good advice. Another question we have is like, what were the results of this project? Did it increase kids' recovery?
So I cannot speak to the medical side of things because that's not my area of expertise. But my understanding is that it proved the hypothesis. And so that's something that they're looking to continue to explore. Obviously, when it comes to using things like this on a mass scale, there are a lot of tests that need to be run. And this is where, to be honest, it steps a little bit outside of our hands, right? And this is where Dr. Gold comes into play, and he goes and he works on that. So the results were preliminary success and a lot of promise. And now they have to do all of the testing. I don't even talking to Dr. Gould about it. I can't tell you all of the details, but like it's very rigorous the way that they do their testing, especially with children. They'll go through different groups, different stages, and they test it with 1 user, 10 users. They test it with a very limited type of ambulatory response. So it's in the midst of all of that. But really, what we did was we created the platform and the experience to be able to make this successful.
Really powerful. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's like any other experiment or case study, especially when it's medical and real related, you want to really factor everything into the results. So thank you for that.
Yeah, we're trying to do another one with Dr. Gould using AI imaginary friends, but that's for another time.
Nice. Cool. So let's move on to another case study that you have prepared for us. And this one is geospatial AR experiment. Yeah.
So, although I would call it something very different. Here, I'll play the video for you, and then it's a short video, and then I'll talk to it. But this is Nico's gift. Nico apparently is, I guess, a common theme because this is about a child named Nico. Your name is Nico, and my daughter's name is Nico. So,
wow. Amazing.
Okay, so I'll just share a little quick video. Give me just 1 second here. Thank you, technology. I have much longer videos if people want to see these after, but I don't want to spend the whole time showing videos of things.
Yeah, we can share the links afterwards.
So that's Nico. Oh. He lives in Australia, very far away from his uncle, and can't ride a bike. And this is his uncle Guige, which I will explain why that's his uncle Guige in a minute. But this was using Google Geospatial AR Core to actually put that bunny in Australia.
Wow.
So now I'll explain why we did that and
what's the story.
So this is a pretty emotionally intense story for us. So the way this came about, right, was basically we were experimenting with geospatial before it was released, and when I was playing with it, I literally dropped a little model outside of one of my creative directors' houses in South America, and she walked outside, and I was like, "Can you see it?" She's like, "Yeah, I can see it. It's really cool." And that was the light bulb moment, like you were talking about a light bulb. That was a light bulb moment where we're like, wait a minute, people look at this as being that sort of typical Times Square experience where you're like, oh, we're all in Times Square and we're all seeing the Macy's Day Parade and this shared experience, or, this wayfinding or whatever. But we realized in that moment that this was very intimate. This was very personal. And this is something that you could actually use to share a gift. Mm-hmm. So at this time, I'm going to tell you about another creative director of mine, Guige. Guige, he had moved to Colombia to be with his mother, who unfortunately had fallen ill. And around this time, she had really recently just passed away from cancer. Wow. And it was in the height of the pandemic, and he was very isolated and very alone, as all of his remaining family lived in Australia. So his brother and his nephew, Nico, they lived in Australia, and he was unable to see them because of the pandemic. And we decided that we wanted to give a gift to Nico from Guige. And so we talked to him and said, well, we want to do this. What do you want to give him? And you might have seen in the video, Guige was wearing a bunny hat. That's kind of his alter ego. Yeah. Another story where that came about, but basically like all of his icons is him looking dead serious wearing a bunny head. And so we decided to create a kind of an anthropomorphized version of a bunny to represent Guige. But he wanted to make sure that he had kind of what he called a Latin touch to it, because his nephew's growing up in Australia. He's half Venezuelan and half Greek, and he wanted to give him a little bit of like a taste of his own heritage and like have culture passed on through him. So that's where it says Tio Guille, it's Uncle Guille, and he's actually dancing the salsa, and that's because his parents met at a salsa dancing class, Nico's parents. So, so it was obviously like a very, very intensely personal experience that we created, and we put it in his driveway, and we said, "Hey, why don't you bring?" Obviously, not to the 1-year-old, to his brother. Please bring Nikos outside. We have something to show you. And it was just really, really amazing to see him be able to connect with his nephew in a way through technology in such an intimate way that you wouldn't expect out of something called AR Core of all things. So that's kind of how that came about.
That's awesome. And I'm sure not just Nico, but the whole family had a great experience. And like maybe when Nico grows up, will realize the full story and appreciates it more. So like, yeah, this is like a really powerful example that AR or just this emerging tech can be used for personalization and really connection beyond what we have. And that's the point of a lot of social media, if done right, to bring us closer, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that a lot of times screens kind of feel like they're distancing us, like they're separating us, but they don't have to. Technology doesn't have to separate us. It's just how you use it. This is a technology that was, again, not necessarily designed for that experience, but the bunny's still there. That link is still live. So he can go out for the next 5-10 years and see the bunny that his uncle left him. To this day, I don't truly know anyone else that's done this. Maybe people have. I hope they have, right? Because like it's such a different experience to be able to create something so personal. But again, it's just not ubiquitous yet. People aren't, I think, looking to do things like this because they think of technology, they think of giant brand activations, they think of these very impersonal things, which can be cool, but it's not the whole story. It's not the emotional side that we need.
Such a good point, because AR has been around for so long. It's not a new technology.
It's not.
But we're waiting, as you said, for the brands to do something rather than, especially now with AI and all these instructions from LLMs. We don't really need, to be very tech savvy to do this thing. So
that's true. Really, I mean, AR Core and Geospatial is basically built in a way that you can do it like pretty simply. Obviously, if you know how to use Blender and these different programs, you could make a lot cooler stuff, but like you don't have to be able to use those things to be able to use this technology. Not at all. And it uses Google Maps. So I'm not inputting crazy coordinates. I can go and find my friend's house and just drop it outside their house.
Yes, without getting inside. That's awesome. Thank you. We do have a few comments. Yemi says, awesome use of interactive immersive tech. Sophia says, love this story. Marcus put a bunny and a heart. So people are really enjoying it. Thank you for sharing it, Danny. And Deanne says, one question I ask myself or my brand is, why do people use my thing beyond a single serving? If you can't answer, start over and rethink worth extended augmented experiences after the aha needs to be
No, I completely agree. The aha or the wow factor, it's lovely, but it goes away. And then you're left with, it's like a wow arms race. Like who did the biggest wow moment, but that doesn't last. It's very fleeting. It doesn't really go past generally a superficial moment or a spectacle. And to be able to do that, I appreciate what Ian's saying, like to really think about why am I doing this? Why do I want to be in a virtual world? Why do I want to be in a headset or in glasses? Why do I want to talk to an AI agent? There are very good reasons to do it, but not just for the sake of it, especially for consumers. We may be in this world experimenting a lot more, but I think it's easy to forget that most people aren't just desperately trying to go out and do everything with this technology. They need a reason. They need to really feel like there is a human reason for that.
Very good point. So let's talk about a little bit more practical advice for our audience. Like, if you were to explain how you design for emotion in emerging tech, is there any design principle or method that you rely on, or any, tips or tricks that we can follow? You're mute.
Sorry. Obviously, this has been a recurring theme throughout, but it really is about designing for people. We are more than just pattern recognition machines. We're born with a real desire to engage and connect with the world and to feel it through our senses and emotions. And emotion is what comes out when we find meaning and connection through the raw material of reality. And it's something that we can all share in, something that we can share together. So I think my job and a lot of our jobs is really to look for ways to enable that in new ways, to create experiences that use emerging tech to engender personal relationships to a moment, a brand, or a community. Because this can still be. I'm not one of those people that feels like brands are good or bad. It's not that. There is a way to weave them into our lives that is meaningful and it is important and helps us, as opposed to just being talked at. To actually design for emotion that is a two-way emotion. It's a conversation and it's authentic.
Yeah, really good point. And how do you go about convincing your clients or stakeholders to kind of prioritize feeling over functionality?
So it's real easy to forget in this industry that clients are people with certain priorities. I guess I don't really think of it as convincing as much as helping them see a broader perspective. Like, we look at demographics, KPIs, user flows. These are all industry code words for an attempt to measure what impact is. Not to game the system, not to count the number of clicks, but actually to think about what impact is, and to understand resonance and emotion. So one thing I like to do is, I don't like to think about a middle income Gen Z who's playing Roblox at a given point in time in the United States. I like to think about it as my daughter or your niece. It's not a user flow, but the emotional experience for somebody, an actual person who leaves with a lasting and meaningful relationship with the brand. Functionality and technology are just means to an end. So I guess to simplify, you have to make sure you're starting with a clear shared understanding of what success is with this client, because at the end of the day, if it doesn't move people, it doesn't move the business. So when you talk about moving the business, that's what their priority is, right?
Yep.
But that is something that you can do through great shared experiences that are emotionally resonant. It is going to move the needle more if people feel it, as opposed to just doing whatever they're used to in whatever format like they've been doing in the past. But it's different. It really is in creating in this space. It's more of an active participation and conversation, because I think particularly with these augmented experiences, there is active participation tends to amplify the whole experience a lot. I mean, passive experiences can be fine, but when we actively engage in a story, then the resonance is multiplied immensely. So that's definitely something that I look to do when I'm creating these things, is look for active engagements and ensuring that it's really authentic to the people and to the community.
Very good point. Thank you. Thank you. And yeah, I mean, brands who have done it right in the past, I'm sure they will get it. And they're all humans. We understand, and showing these examples definitely resonate. Awesome. So let's talk about agentic AI and all these new innovations that are happening. How do you think this focus on emotional intelligent design is actually helping brands? And what is this agentic AI optimization?
Well, that's something that was definitely kind of an undercurrent of when I was just at Microsoft Build last week and at Google I/O. All of these conferences are not saying it, but they're saying it. So I'm sure a lot of people are aware on this call, but just to back up for a second, like SEO is indexing metadata and search engine optimization. But what I like to call agentic engine optimization, or AEO, is looking toward a future where personal agents act as intermediaries, doing our search for us. And this isn't like what people are doing right now, where I'm using AI to do search. That's still mostly search from the same web channels and pulling things out. It's just curating it in a different way.
Yeah.
General AI. But what I'm talking about is personal agent searching based upon an understanding of who I am, what I might be interested in, and other specific filters about me. And as that matures, brands are going to have to understand how to optimize for not just people, but for personal agents, very, very personal agents that have been trained upon my behavior and my data. And I don't think that this is the same as the algorithmic methods of the past. It really is something different. So my personal aesthetic, which everyone who knows me know, I only wear black, but my personal aesthetic, the platforms that I exist on, the brands that I lean into, those things are all going to come together to help to guide my agent, who won't be necessarily caring as much about what other people like as much as what I like. Now, one of those scary, amazing, interesting moments I think happened last week at these conferences. This is going to get real geeky, so I'll make it real quick. But Anthropic and Microsoft basically are both using an MCP, which is Model Context Protocol, which is a way for these agents to talk to each other. This is kind of like the new HTTP, right? This is the new language of communication. Why I think this is so crazy and so amazing is that now it's not just individual models, but creating a network of these models. And that's when these agentic searches can really happen. That's when I can have an agent that actually goes and searches across all of these different channels and platforms, and potentially the creation of a whole new idea of what the web is. So for brands, I mean, that's going to change everything, right? Like I'm not creating like my header one, header two indexing system anymore. It's really going to come down to like those comments, right? Those comments that we talked about, like, oh, well, people really liked my game in Roblox. Well, that's going to matter. The search tool is going to know, okay, Nike created an experience, Walmart created an experience in Roblox, and people really dug it. They thought it was cool. They thought it was authentic. So maybe Danny might like Nike because it fits into his aesthetic. He'd probably like the pandas, which are black and white. And I'm going to recommend this because it's participating in that world. It's just a little bit more complicated, but it's definitely a fascinating new area where things are going.
Very good point. And Yemi is joking, make it quack.
I can't speak for this long without making some.
No, I love how you speak. It's coming out that you're a poet, and it's all very rhythmic and beautiful. But to what you shared, so these agentic AIs are becoming like our personal assistant, going out, doing things on our behalf. And then, they kind of look at us as a whole, as a whole human that we are, rather than, okay, looking at this cookie or that behavior, that click.
Yeah.
So that kind of changes everything.
Yeah.
And then you touched on how these LLMs are speaking to each other, kind of like the interoperability that we were talking about, Web3 and metaverse space. So a lot is going on. And what do you think these companies or brands should do to stay relevant?
Well, that's really
$1 million question.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think authenticity is of the paramount importance, right? Engaging people in a manner that's honest and respectful of the community that they're existing in is really, really important now, because it's not passive anymore. It's more of like an active lifestyle kind of engagement and a two-way dialogue. I think we're way past the point where I know I want to be interrupted by ads and marketing. I don't want to be interrupted. I want it to be integrated into my lifestyle. Like in the way that I was talking about before, if Nike is relevant to me, great. Maybe I need a new pair of kicks. If it's not, just stay out of my way. Like, I'm just not interested in that. So I think that to prepare for that, it's really important for brands to have that authentic presence across different ecosystems. But they have to be real, provide real value. to people, not be an ad. Why do I want to go to the Nike experience? Oh, I got a pair of Nikes that my character can wear, and also I did a platformer that I really enjoyed, or I connected with people in some way, something that actually is authentic to these different areas. I think that's really important. I think it's also important to be able to have a strong brand identity, because it has to flex across these different channels, and that's not easy. So certain brands might find it easier. I brought up Nike a bunch of times because they have a very strong brand, so it's a little easier for them to kind of jump in and out of these spaces and be authentic and still be Nike, as opposed to a wolf in sheep's clothing who just jumps in and says like, "Oh, this is cool, right? Don't you want to eat in the metaverse?" And you're like, "No, no, I don't."
Yes, not everything we have to try to see. It's not gonna work.
Right.
A lot of it makes sense. And this is such a good point you mentioned about the ads and so on. Like it has to be telling us the real story. The best ads, like something you don't want to skip. You just like you want to watch it like you're watching any other story. So that's a really good important part, and wouldn't happen without the emotions. So that is really important. And I'm curious, what are you really excited about right now in terms of tech and all these new advancements? Is there anything that you're truly, genuinely excited about?
Yeah, I'm wearing part of it. Like these are my Meta AI glasses, and Google just announced theirs are coming, and that's going to have a little bit more augmented reality. So later this year, we will have glasses. The the glasses that were promised when Google Glass came out like decades ago are actually here, and they actually look good. Dare I say? Like I think they're nice looking glasses. I think they're Google's partnering with Warby Parker. So I think that's going to give us the ability to create augmented reality experiences that fit into this mode that I was talking about earlier a lot better. Practical AR that's actually related to the world, that can actually do more things, because I don't have to wear a headset. I don't have to grab my phone, which nobody wants to do, to, again, put a layer between me and the world. So the glasses remove that layer, or they make it transparent, as it were. So I think that's a big part of it. And that means that we can stop making them about AR selfie filters, face augmentations, and being so insular and self-interested, but actually augmenting the world around us. Also, of course, AI is why this is coming about. I mean, the Meta Ray-Bans are cool, but they go beyond cool when the AI is in use, and I start seeing I use image recognition to see the world and to learn about it. So instead of me having to like go through these steps, I can't tell you how many trees I have looked up wearing these glasses, because I'm just like, what is that? And they're like, oh, that's a myrtle. I'm like, okay, now I have lots of other questions, but like I get to participate in experience of the world and augment my reality in ways that are very interesting and I think very meaningful. So that's definitely one of the biggest ones, I think, is the oft-promised glasses future.
Yes, exactly, because so they're seamlessly integrated. Like what we said about the ads is also similar to the glasses. It's seamlessly integrated into our lives, and doesn't add as much friction. So that's a really good point. And Yemi says brands should do anything other than what the initial luxury brands did. Provenance, transparency, and authenticity is indeed going to set brands apart. And Ian says, I think you're really nailing the choose your own adventure consumerism. Brands must meet their people where they are, or in our case, where their feet land. It also needs to be free of friction. Why needs to a sneakerhead care about Nike or any other brand like a sneaker, and saying this is the key? Yep, really good points. Thank you, Ian and Yemi. And let's talk about, is there any hardware or any tech that you think is underestimated, and you think that is it the same? Is it AR AI glasses, or is there any other emerging tech that you think is underestimated?
I mean, obviously, I think that at the risk of not answering your question, I think that it's actually tech that hasn't come out yet, because I'm very, very interested in For example, Sam Altman and John Eve just made an announcement last week about some device. And I'm very interested in that because I don't know what the device is, but I think this is just a huge sea change where we're finally at a point where everyone has accepted that we're getting very, very tired of all of these screens and monitors. And there has to be a better and more natural and frictionless way to interact. I think glasses are one of them, but there may be others. Now, with the Sam Altman John Eve thing, I really hope it doesn't turn into another humane AI pin. but but I really think what I'm excited about is the unknown that is very, very near. I don't think that this is like years out now. Now we're talking about months to a year where we start seeing different form factors. I mean, these Ray-Bans sold over 2 million already. That's not like, an experiment or anything like that. This is now like a viable business model, which is changing the way that we can interact with the world.
Yeah, we heard that Zuck got surprised that they were not expecting this to be that popular, but it's just a matter of time. The market is now ready. People are ready to share their information like this. And regarding this acquisition of OpenAI, billions of dollars, people are speculating that it's like those pendants that record everything. I don't know. The privacy of that is very scary. I don't know.
It is. I hope it's not just that. The privacy of all these devices, as soon as it's always on and wearable,
Yeah.
then there's a lot to contend with in terms of that. But I do think it's an inevitable to have that sort of always on aspect of it. But being able to lock it down locally, being able to control its usage, is going to be really, really important.
Yep, totally. And are there any storytelling formats you're itching to see applied in immersive or AI-driven spaces?
I think related to what we were just talking about, ambient focus, like rich, deep storytelling that's only accessed by choice. I kind of look at it like, all right, when Quentin Tarantino makes a movie, all of his characters have really long backstories that nobody knows about, right? That's kind of how he gives the actors and the whole thing more meaning and depth, is they have a whole life that's not visible. But I like that being part of the story and being something that I can choose to interact with. But it's not in my face necessarily. It's something that I can choose. So it's ambient. It's there. Everything is sort of augmented, giving me like I think it was Ian that mentioned a choose your own adventure. Choose your own adventure that still has like a focal point, but that I can veer and move around that focal point and get a little bit more of an ambient experience. I also think smart NPCs are things that are going to be applied not just to entertainment. Although if you have not checked out AI Darth Vader in Fortnite, do it. It's hilarious. That's, I think, the first mainstream use of an AI smart NPC like in a blockbuster game like that. Nice. But I think that's also going to be part of brands too. It's going to be part of brand storytelling. The smart NPC is like anthropomorphic representations of ideas, of brands, of campaigns for that matter, that can be intensely personal and allow you to interact with it in a deeper way.
Very good point. Or we can call them AI influencers or AI stores. But yeah, it's happening. Whether we are ready or not, it's happening. No. And I'm curious, how do you stay inspired to create in such a fast-pacing landscape?
I like to think of myself as a wide-eyed cynic. So I think it's important not to follow every trend or bend in the hype cycle, as it were, but I go into every new tech, cultural shift, or unknown with real wonder and a real desire to see what can this thing do. Not necessarily, like I was saying, what it's supposed to do, but what can I make it do for me and the things that I care about? How can I use this to actually create emotional resonance through the storytelling that I want to impart on people? Again, like my daughter or my son or my friends or my parents or a whole community. So I really go in with that wide-eyed wonder, but just a little bit of skepticism.
Yeah, that's needed. Awesome. Thank you so much, Danny. This was so insightful and fruitful for us. We definitely learned a lot, and your perspective is really amazing. Awesome. And if you can just tell us, where can people find you? How can they support you? Is there anything you can tease us about what's coming up with the electric factory? How can people support that?
Well, we're all in on an augmented future, obviously, combining AI, XR, and multisensorial layering. And we really want to show the world that creating emotionally impactful experiences that resonate in a positive way with real people can actually help businesses and brands succeed. So if you want to collaborate, if you want to partner as a client, or just be a co-conspirator, I would say come and join us and create an experience that connects people rather than creating barriers. And ultimately, reach out to us on our website or to me on LinkedIn and help us create a reality that we all want to live in together.
Love it. Such an inspiring invitation. Thank you so much, Danny. Thank you to our amazing audience who joined us live or watched the recording afterwards. Santiago, Ian, Casey, Marcus, Sophia, Yemi, Daniel, Debbie, Fatima. We're so grateful. Jean, Matt. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your presence and engagement. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you, Danny. It was
Thank
awesome.
you. Thanks, everybody. It was a lot of fun.
Yes, likewise. Thank you. Bye.